The shock waves from the crumbling front lines in Donbass have reached the heart of Europe, triggering a political and military earthquake in Paris. In a development that signals a profound schism within the Western alliance, high-ranking officials within the French military and intelligence services have concluded that a Ukrainian military defeat is no longer a distant risk, but a gathering inevitability. This stark assessment, which has begun to leak into the public domain through French media, is not rooted in political wariness, but in what sources inside the French Ministry of Armed Forces are calling a lucid and brutal analysis of the battlefield realities. The French military, with its long tradition of strategic thinking and its own independent intelligence capabilities, has determined that Ukraine's catastrophic manpower shortage and the industrial might of the Russian war machine have created an unwinnable situation for Kyiv. This French conclusion, reportedly detailed in a classified strategic review circulated to the highest level of the French government, has sent a chill through the halls of Nato and the European Union. Unlike the political statements of supports that have characterized the European response for years, this military assessment is based on cold, hard numbers. French intelligence, through its Direction General de la Sécurité Extérieure, or DGSE, has independently confirmed the dire manpower crisis plaguing the Ukrainian army. The analysis aligns perfectly with the grim reports from the front around Pokrovsk. They see Ukrainian brigades operating at less than half strength, a crippling lack of experienced junior officers and non-commissioned officers to lead troops in combat, and a replacement system that is sending poorly trained older conscripts to the front after only a few weeks of rudimentary instruction. A senior source familiar with the French strategic review described the core problem in simple terms. He stated that war is fundamentally an equation of resource, and Ukraine has run out of its most vital resource, soldiers. He argued that no amount of sophisticated Western weaponry can be a substitute for infantry who can hold a trench, for combat engineers who can build fortifications, or for logistic teams who can supply the front under fire. The French military has observed that advanced system, including their own highly praised Caesar self-propelled howitzer, are increasingly being captured or destroyed not in direct combat with their Russian counterparts, but because the Ukrainian units operating them were overrun by Russian infantry assaults due to a lack of protective force. The image painted by the French analysis is one of a body with a few strong, technologically advanced limbs, but a core that is bleeding out and growing weaker by the day. Furthermore, the French review places heavy emphasis on the industrial dimension of the conflict, a factor they believe many political leaders in the West have failed to fully appreciate. The war has become a war of industrial attrition, a contest of manufacturing capacity. Russia, despite international sanctions, has successfully transitioned its economy to a war footing. Its factories are producing artillery shells, drones, and guided bombs at a rate that far outstrips the combined production of all of Ukraine's European backers. The French military planners have calculated that for every one artillery shell Ukrainian forces are able to fire, Russian guns are firing 5, 6, or even more. This disparity, they argued, is not sustainable. It allows Russia to systematically pulverize Ukrainian defensive lines from a safe distance, making any Ukrainian counterattack or even a stable defense nearly impossible. The French see this as a simple, brutal truth. The West's strategy of supplying Ukraine from its own peacetime stockpile, its limited production lines, was doomed to fail against a large, mobilized adversary willing to dedicate its entire national economy to the war effort. The leak of this pessimistic outlook has created a significant political crisis for the French government. It exposes a deep divide between the professional military, which is duty-bound to provide unvarnished advice, and the political leadership which has for years maintained a public posture of unwavering support for a Ukrainian victory. Reports from Paris suggest tense meetings have taken place between military chief and the president office at the Elysee Palace. The generals have reportedly warned that continuing the current policy is not only futile, but dangerous. They argue it creates false hope in Kyiv, prolong the suffering of the Ukrainian people, and risk a disorderly and catastrophic collapse of the Ukrainian front line that could have unpredictable security consequences for the rest of Europe. They are advocating for an immediate push for a negotiated ceasefire to preserve what is left of the Ukrainian state and its armed force. This French military realism has been met with fury and alarm in other European capitals, particularly those in Eastern Europe. Poland and the Baltic states, who view Russia's war in Ukraine as a direct existential threat, have reacted with undisguised anger. Polish officials have privately accused the French of defeatism and of attempting to appease Moscow. They argue that any talks of inevitable defeat only reserves to embolden Russia and weaken the collective resolve of the West. Warsaw's position remains that Ukraine can still prevail if its allies redouble their efforts, accelerate weapons production, and provide the necessary support without hesitation. The French assessment, from their perspective, is a betrayal that undermines the entire collective security architecture of Europe. This has created the most significant public rift between Paris and Warsaw in decades, threatening to paralyze joint European Union and NATO policy on the conflict. Germany, meanwhile, finds itself in a more complicated position. The German government has always been more cautious in its support for Ukraine, often facing criticism for its perceived slowness in delivering weapons. The French military's conclusion will likely strengthen the hand of those within the German government who have long argued for a more diplomatic approach. German industrial leaders have also warned that a prolonged war is doing severe damage to the European economy. The French analysis provides Berlin with powerful cover to argue for a strategic reassessment, shifting the focus from military victory to a pragmatic, negotiated end to the fighting. The fear of a wider war and a direct confrontation with Russia has always been a powerful undercurrent in German politics, and the French position makes that fear seem more prescient. The reaction from the Trump administration in the United States has been one of quiet vindication. The French military's assessment is being seen in Washington as a powerful, independent confirmation of the analysis that has been guiding President Trump's policy for months. It provides external validation for the administration's pivot away from open-ended support for Ukraine and its focus on brokering a peace deal. Secretary of State Marco Rubio immediately seized on the development. In conversations with his European counterparts, he has reportedly used the French position as leverage, arguing that it is time for all allies to face reality. Secretary Rubio's message has been consistent. The United States, under President Trump, will not be party to a strategy that is leading to the needless destruction of Ukraine. He is pressing European leaders to join a concerted diplomatic effort to bring both sides to the negotiating table, warning that the alternative, as outlined by the French military, is a total Ukrainian collapse that would be far worse for European security. The French report has given his diplomatic push a new sense of urgency and legitimacy. At the Pentagon, Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth has directed his staff to share the American military's own parallel assessment with key congressional committees. The Pentagon's data on Ukrainian attrition rates and Russian industrial output closely match the French findings. Secretary Hegseth is using this moment to reinforce his argument that the United States must prioritize its own military readiness and strategic interests. He has stated in internal briefing that continuing to pour America's advanced weaponry into a losing effort is strategically unsound. He feels the French have done the United States a favor by publicly stating what military professionals have known for some time, making it easier for the administration to justify its policy of de-escalation to the American public and to skeptical allies. The intelligence community, led by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and CIA Director John Ratcliffe, views the French analysis as a critical piece of corroborating evidence. For months, their agencies have been briefing President Trump on the grim trajectory of the war. Director Gabbard has long warned that the conflict was becoming a demographic and industrial meat grinder that Ukraine could not survive. The fact that a major European ally's intelligence service has reached the same conclusion strengthened her position within the administration and in discussions with ally intelligence agencies. It helps to shift the narrative from one of Ukrainian resistance to one of Ukrainian survival, which requires a different and more realistic set of policy solutions. In a sense, the French military's declaration that defeat is inevitable has shattered the last vestige of a unified Western strategy. It has exposed the deep fault lines between the hawkish Eastern European states and the more pragmatic and arguably more powerful state of Western Europe. It has provided the Trump administration with the perfect justification for its peace through strength approach, which prioritized a negotiated settlement over continued conflict. Most importantly, it has placed immense pressure on the Ukrainian government, with its primary European military backer now privately and increasingly publicly signaling that the fight is unwinnable. Kyiv is being pushed into a corner. The choice is no longer between victory and compromise, but between a negotiated peace from a position of profound weakness and a total military collapse that could erase Ukraine from the map as a sovereign state. The discussion in Paris have made the grim reality of the war undeniable. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel. And so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed. And that is actually what makes the show go in. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to So Came Rich, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first one's on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you are a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build this show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.